Because right now our community is really hurting, our city is hurting, and our officers are really going through a tough time as well. So there are three incidents I would like to chat about today. And I'm going to give you everything that I can. Feel free to raise your hands to ask questions, but um, frankly, I'm going to give you everything that I can give you in these brief updates, and I probably will not have an answer for you for your questions. To begin with, I would like to talk real quick about an incident that happened this last Thursday. Members of the new focused intervention team were out patrolling, and they tried to stop a car that began driving erratically and took off from them. An officer tried to deploy stop sticks, which are meant to flatten tires, on the on-ramp to ID4 at 39th. And as the vehicle went by, someone in the vehicle started shooting at the officer. Fortunately, the officer was not injured, and the vehicle was later apprehended in Washington. So I wanted to thank our partners up in Washington, and also thank the officers that are showing up every day. You know, I think this might be the third time our officers have been shot at in 6 months, and it's a little dangerous for them, but they're still showing up. They still want to make a difference in the community. So that happened last Thursday. Can everyone hear me okay, by the way? Okay. Second incident I want to talk about. So just before 7 p.m. at around 6:45 last night, officers were dispatched to the 900 block of Southwest Broadway Drive. And they were dispatched to a disturbance call. But before they got there, while they were still en route, they were updated by radio that there were shots being fired. So officers showed up, they set up a perimeter, and they began to investigate and address the apartment that they were told a suspect might be in. During the course of this investigation, an officer-involved shooting happened. Officers had previously put in an order to shelter in place, and they were able to lift that after the officer-involved incident. It's tragic for everyone involved, but it's something we're still working through here. So around that same time, across town, so although that incident started at 6:45, it took a while to progress. Officers in North Precinct got a call in the area 55 in Haslow that there had been a shooting. They showed up and found that one female was deceased and 5 others were injured by gunfire. And that was a very chaotic scene from what I'm being told. You know, there were a lot of people there, but there weren't a lot of people who wanted to talk with police. And detectives believe there are quite a few people who either witnessed the incident or recorded it on video. And so they are asking, please, 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 if you know something, if you saw something, or if you recorded it, please give it to them, because they are trying to put together a very complex puzzle without all the pieces, and they need the community's help. And so, yeah, a lot of people left without talking with police, and that's one way we help solve crime, is with the help of the community. So 3 very intense, very critical incidents, and we're doing our best to address it. The chief is fully aware of all this, and so is the mayor, and we are keeping them informed as things go along. One thing I did not mention was the preliminary investigation of the shooting at 55 and Haslow is that there was a confrontation between an armed neighbor and armed protesters, and that makes it very complicated, very intricate incident that we are still working through. So that is what I have. If you have any questions for me, please ask. Again, I believe I've given you everything I have. I know a number of news agencies are contacting me and saying, hey, neighbors at the officer involved said someone came out and was shooting. I can't confirm that. I don't know. We're at the very beginning stages of the investigation, and there's a lot that goes into it. So I think first is Alex. Do you have a question? And do I need to, let me see.
Yeah, I think I'm unmuted. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, my question is just regarding the Haslow shooting. Has anyone been arrested tied to that incident, either last night on the scene or during investigations following up?
So, like I mentioned, it very complicated, very intricate, and as we learn more, things change. At this point, I cannot comment on. It would be irresponsible of me to comment on arrests that were made, if any. Is that your question, Alex? You are muted. Okay. So now I think I believe Francis, Lynn, did you have a question? Okay, I'm going to click a button and I think you'll be able to talk here. Okay.
Yes, thank you. So my question is about the second incident you mentioned on Southwest Broadway. I know you said there's not a lot of information you can give, but you said an officer involved shooting happened. Is it possible to get any more detail, like what happened, what led to the shooting, why did it happen?
Really, it very complicated and started off with what sounds like a completely separate incident, a disturbance call that may or may not have been related. We really have very few details at this point, and detectives, investigators are doing their best to work through it to find out more. I'm sorry, Francis, you're muted now. Okay, it looks like is Megan Allison. I think you are next. I cannot hear you for some reason.
How about now? Okay. Yeah, to start, I would love to follow up on what Alex was asking in the chat as well. How come you're not able to share information surrounding the arrest, given the Haslow incident?
You know, it is very complicated, and we never release victim information, and things are changing constantly in this investigation, so I just cannot release any information.
Do you believe there's still a risk to the public in that area?
You know, I mean, there are a lot of guns in our city, you know, and there are a lot of responsible gun owners. There are also people who are not as responsible. So can I definitively say there is no danger? No. We're people with free will.
How would you respond to people that may be concerned that there's a suspect on the loose, that there could be continued gun violence?
You know, I don't have enough information right now to answer to that. I can say the city leaders, the Portland Police Bureau, we're doing what we can to address the problem, and we are just as shocked and as saddened by what's going on. We know it's going to get better, but it will take some time. Okay, I think April, you are unmuted now.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I can hear you.
Okay, great. With regards to the thing that happened on Broadway, you say an officer involved shooting happened. Can you clarify what that phrase means? Did an officer shoot a person, and did that person die from shots fired by a police officer?
Yes, the way I understand it, the facts are that officer shot an individual, and that individual is deceased. Connor, I think you are next and have been unmuted.
Great, thank you. So for the people that were shot near Normandale Park, were all of them protesters, or was one of the people that was shot, was that the shooter himself?
Yeah, that information I do not have, and if I had it, I probably could not give it out, but I just don't know that. Lizzie, you're unmuted.
Thank you. Yeah, I asked these questions in the chat and I emailed them to you, but I went out to the Broadway View condos and spoke with a bunch of people who live there. And they said that the police shot and killed a person, and that person was lying out in front of their condo area for quite some time. I'm wondering if you can tell us how long that person was out there. And also, the second question I have is there was several bullet holes visible from where I was, plus I think more because there was labeled A, B, and E. And the neighbors all seemed pretty convinced that those were bullets from police guns, but they weren't sure of that. And I'm wondering if you know who fired shots at the Broadway View, if it was the suspect or if it was police.
So two things I think you're asking. One is about the body being laying there as long as it did, and I don't have an answer to you. One thing I can say is that detectives and investigators have one chance to do the best job that they can do. And so sometimes evidence has to stay where it is so that they can take photographs, take 3D images, and get a full picture of what happened. Sometimes they don't even know questions they have to ask yet until they do a big overview first and then go to each individual place. So unfortunately, there are times where evidence of an incident like this, it has to be there for a while. Unfortunately, sometimes when people are shot at scenes, their bodies have to be there for a while so that we can get the best picture and collect the best evidence of what occurred. The second thing you're asking, that one, it's hard to say because from my understanding, there was shooting that occurred before police officers arrived. They got the update that someone was shooting a gun. And so, you know, it's too early in the investigation for me to answer those questions there on the bullet strikes. Michael, you are unmuted.
Hi, yeah, I apologize if this is repeating Alex's question, but just to be clear, you cannot confirm that even whether there's been an arrest in the Normandale shooting. And if that's the case, could you maybe give us a timeline of when you might be able to tell us whether there's been an arrest or not?
You know, I can't give you a timeline simply for the fact that like the detective sergeant had been up for 35 hours the last I talked to him. The investigators are exhausted. They go from incident to incident, just like our officers answering 911 calls. So I'm not able to talk with them at all the times I would like to because detectives are up at all hours of the day. So I cannot comment on that, and I don't know when I will be able to release any more. I apologize. Jamie Goldberg, I think you're unmuted.
Thank you. In terms of the shooting in the Southwest Hills, I had a couple questions there. You mentioned that there were shots fired before officers arrived. Can you confirm whether the shots fired were by the person who fired those shots was the same person that police later shot and killed? Whether that person ever fired at police, and can you also say how many police discharged their weapons?
Yeah, all I can do on several of those is guess, and I don't like to guess without having a lot more of the information. There were a number of witnesses on the scene when officers arrived who directed officers to where the shooter was. I think that's the best I can do in answering your question there. The other questions, I don't have enough information to answer. And they sound like questions I wouldn't be able to answer anyway, even if I did know.
You guys usually report how many officers discharge their weapons and.
Oh, sure. Yeah, so the last I heard, it was at least one and possibly two, but the investigation was still going at the time. And the investigators are now getting some rest. So one, possibly two officers, I don't know definitively. I think that the Zoom actually is going to end here in 2 minutes. Was there one last question anyone had? Go ahead, Gail.
Yes, thank you. We understand that prior to this weekend, there were about 15 people who were killed in Portland homicides. 14 of those were shootings. I don't know if those numbers are exactly right, but we were hoping to get the new adjusted total for Portland homicides this year, 2022, and how many people were killed in shootings.
Right, that sounds right to me. You know, it is the weekend now, so things change rapidly over the weekend sometimes, and I am not always updated exactly, but I believe we are at 15 homicides, 14 of them being shooting homicides, and just over 203 shooting incidents with 50 people injured in shootings. So, you know, for the first month and 20 days, it's been challenging for the city of Portland. So I want to thank you all, and I will do my best to learn more, to get more from you. It's been a very busy weekend, and I imagine more information will be forthcoming, and I'll try to get as much to you as I can. I believe it's important for you guys to know what we know. Sometimes to protect investigations, we have to be a little slower with that information, but I'm going to try to get you what I can. So thank you, and I hope you have a good rest of your Sunday.